Welcome to the latest printed press. I'm happy today to be focusing on young Cypriot professionals in the community. And today we're going to be talking about what does it take to become successful in your career, what opportunities are available to you. And joining us tonight is Yusuf Ahmet, who works as a senior managing consultant in the investment banking industry, having previously worked at Accenture, EY and Blackrock. He is a chartered accountant, currently a member of the members board at the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Scotland, and was awarded Top 100 Young CA in 2018. He has a first-class degree in accounting and financial management, which he was the second highest in the whole of the Surrey Business School, of which only there was 1,000 students. So you're a very, very bright young man, Yusuf, and welcome to my program again, but this time focusing on yourself and your career. How are you? How are you feeling today?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show. I feel like when you were making that introduction that someone else was going to come because it's such a big introduction. But no, it's great to be on the show. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you back. We had a series of Ramadan programs, but obviously, because I got to know you personally, you know, I knew about your background and your career, and I thought it'd be really, really useful for our viewers, especially our young viewers, to get a bit of inspiration today and hear about your life. If we just start with, you know, the fact that you were born in this country, but you have a Turkish Cypriot background. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. My grandparents on my mother's side are both Lurujinalı, and they came over to the UK in the 60s. Yeah. They came over literally with nothing but an empty suitcase. My grandma, they came to South London. My grandma worked as doing sewing, dikiş, and my grandfather worked in at the gas board. And they just worked hard and hard and hard, and then slowly they moved into the world of business. They initially established a Wimpy, which was quite common in the UK back in before sort of McDonald's and Burger King overtook the fast food world. So they had a few Wimpies, and then they went into the jewelry business. He also had a wine bar and a few other businesses as well. And before they knew it, they had a bit of a small business empire. It was a very sort of business orientated family. But yeah, that's my connection with Cyprus. My mother, she grew up in South London before moving to Surrey, and she trained as a hairdresser with Vidal Sassoon and L'Oreal, and got all of her diplomas and set up her own salon before then transitioning over to the jewelry trade with the rest of the family, where she's been working. She brought myself and my older sister up as a single mother. My father walked out when I was about 3 months old. Didn't really want to know about us. But my mum, despite that, has been a role model to us growing up. She's a very hard worker, and you know, would work pretty much 7 days a week. In some cases, even have multiple jobs just to put food on the table, and to give us the opportunities that she and my grandparents didn't have.
Yeah. She's actually an amazing woman. I've heard about her, and I think I want her on the program. So if she's listening, it's my offer here, because she's a real inspiration. Yeah, being a single mum, it's not easy, and working around the clock and bringing up children. So obviously she was a true inspiration for you, really. And I think she's sort of made you the person that you are today, most definitely. Tell us about your upbringing, like the schools you went to, your college and uni life, because that's very interesting for our viewers. It's not really what people would expect. So
yeah, I think so. I went to nursery. I think that's really important to, you know, interact with other children at that age. My primary school that I went to, you know, a state school, it was quite Christian. So I remember sort of singing all the Christian hymns in the morning in assembly, etc. My secondary school was a state school, wasn't the greatest. I remember for quite a lot of our subjects, we just have supply teachers after supply teachers. My college wasn't great at all, actually. In fact, it was probably the worst educational establishment I went to. It was in the Croydon area. It got such a bad rating by Ofsted, they actually had to knock down the whole building and rebuild it just after I'd left. It was quite a rough college. So as you went through, you'd have security, they'd be wearing sort of bulletproof vests, etc. There'd constantly sort of be police searches. Gang crime back then was on the, was much worse than probably it is today in that area. There's a lot of people getting involved in sort of drugs, shooting, stabbings, and a lot of that was coming into the college as well. The college also wasn't just focused on people studying for A levels or BTEC, but it also was for people who wanted to retake their GCSEs. So there was quite a big portion of the school that had failed their GCSEs and were coming to the college to try and get a C or a B in English. And there was also a lot of people that were coming just to get EMA, education maintenance allowance, which is something which has now been scrapped, but it's essentially that you would get paid to go to college if you would qualify. And there was a lot of people that would just come into college for that and to sort of hang out with their friends. In terms of the actual teachers, it wasn't that great. I remember I was actually 1 mark away from an A. I got my paper remarked and I looked at the answer I put. It's exactly what we were taught in lesson. And we were taught the wrong things. It was at that level. It was extremely difficult to get good grades and to get into a university with that sort of backdrop. If I'm honest, though, before I go on to university, I actually at that point wasn't considering I considered going to university, but I was probably more along the lines of not going to university. And that started with my accounting teacher at college. The advice that he gave my taser, my mum's sister, was that actually, a lot of people are going to university, spending all this money, and there's almost this culture around university, but you could actually get into a blue chip company, as a school leaver and work your way up the ranks and get paid rather than paying money towards university, and get, 3 years ahead of everybody else. And I started to sort of entertain that idea. And so whilst I was at college, there was this poster that was put up, and they were sending it out to all the sort of colleges and institutions up and down the country. And it was by a company called Blackrock, which were the largest asset management firm in the world. And they wanted to select a very few across the UK. I think it was about 3 people or so to join as a school leaver. And so I think thousands of people applied, and I decided to apply. And I got through to the final round and I got offered a job, fortunately. Which I was quite surprised at, because when I went to the job interview and I met the other candidates, they'd all kind of come from privileged backgrounds. Their parents worked in the investment banking industry. I felt that I didn't have a chance. But it just goes to show that actually, if you really want something, and given that I'd worked quite a lot anyway alongside school at my family's jewelry shop, it put me in good standing in the interview to talk about my experience as well as my education. And so they offered me the job, and I didn't take it. And the reason I didn't take it is because whilst I was at college, there was another class, business studies, BTEC, which I did A levels, and they'd organise a trip to go and see a partner at a top accounting firm. Now there's the big 4, and one of the big 4 is called Ernst & Young, EY. And there was a partner from this practice that was going to give a talk about his success and how he's got to where he was. And they were running low on people. And everyone was sort of suited and booted, all the students at the college that were going to attend this talk. I was wearing a bright red hoodie with red trainers, because college was relaxed. And they said to me, do you want to join? We're running low on numbers. I said, I'd love to. And so we sort of traveled up to London. And I was probably the only person there without the suit. And he delivered this fantastic presentation. And when it came to the Q&A, people were asking rather ridiculous questions, you know, how much money do you earn, what car do you drive, etc., etc. And the questions I asked were more around globalization, how's that affecting them, you know, are they looking at moving their operations offshore, etc., etc. And I caught up with him afterwards, and he gave me his business card, and he said, you know, if you do need anything, then just let me know. And so after that session, I sent him an email, and I said to him, look, I'd love to get some work experience, even if it means working for free.
Yes.
I'd love to have the opportunity to work at EY. And he didn't respond. And I did something which is a bit wacky, and I'm not necessarily recommending this to people now. I can't believe I did it. It's a bit cringeworthy, but I probably wouldn't be where I am today. And that is that a few weeks later, this time I was dressed in a suit. I actually walked into the building and said, I'd like to speak to this partner. And he came down. He probably thought I was a client or something. And you know, as soon as he saw me, he recognized me. And I said to him, oh, you know, I sent you this email, you didn't respond. And he turned around and said to me, no, you're quite right. He said, I've been extremely busy, but given that you've come all this way, why don't I show you around the office? And it had this beautiful building next to Tower Bridge. And we went up to the top floor, and he showed me like the whole view and everything. And I was kind of amazed by it all.
Set your expectations, didn't it then?
It did. And I said to him, look, I really want to work here. You know, is there any way we can make it happen? He said, look, if you can pay for your own travel and you've got the right grades, you know, let's set up a conversation with HR. And so we went down that route, and I managed to get some work experience for a couple of weeks. And it's a fantastic project, actually. It was in mergers and acquisitions. It was, I can talk about it now. American Express were buying out a German bank, and we were sort of going in to check, you know, is this bank worth what they think it is, and producing a report. And it was my first kind of experience in the professional services world. And I just worked really hard. And at the end of the 2 weeks, this partner, very senior partner, by the way, I think he heads up the transaction advisory services practice in the UK. And at the end of the 2 weeks, he took his own time out of his own schedule and sat down with me for about half an hour and just gave me feedback. And I really appreciated that. And I said to him my dilemma about university or going to work. And he said to me, look, you're going to be working for the rest of your life. You know, you're probably going to be working for 30, 40, maybe 50 years. Yes. And he said to me, go to university, keep your options open, and do something that you want to do. Do something that you're interested in. He goes, you know, I wish I did English literature. I did economics. But, you know, go down university, get your degree. You've got more than enough years ahead of you to do your work. And so I decided to turn down the offer at Blackrock and apply for university.
What makes you different? I mean, because obviously you didn't come from the most privileged background. You went to a college that was definitely not the best. Why is it that you felt that you sort of pulled yourself out of that? Was it the grit that you had? We talk about this, isn't it? This determination. Was it that? Was it the fact that you could foresee the future? Was it that you took your initiative? Like, you did a lot of voluntary stuff. You weren't sort of scared by or felt overwhelmed by this big businessman in this big company. When he didn't reply to your email, you persevered, didn't you? And you went out there and you say now I wouldn't recommend it, but I don't know, you know, I think I would recommend it. I think that's an amazing story personally. And we're getting comments in, by the way, in the meantime. A lot of people have already been inspired by you, Yusuf, but I assure the audience we're going to look at it in a moment. But I just want you to answer this question. What made you different? Tell us.
I think it's to do with one's upbringing. So I think, you know, seeing my mum make the sacrifices that she made for us, you know, that obviously had a massive impact on me. Yes. Seeing my grandparents and what they achieved, having come from nothing. And my whole family are just known for working hard. My grandma now, she's 80 years old. She doesn't need to work, but she goes to work because she loves to work. She loves to interact with customers. It's who she is. It's part of their identity. Yeah, and seeing that and being brought up, you know, over the summer holidays and stuff, we'd be in the businesses. We'd be at the back of the jewelry shop or whatever. You know, we grew up in business. That's what we were exposed to. And so I think part of that being exposed to the business world sort of growing up and seeing that your family and having those good role models around you. But also, I think having people around you, like my mother, who said, you know, you can achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. You can do it. If you really want something, if you're really hungry for it, don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't do it. And so I think having that belief, having that confidence to go out and get what it is that you need to get,
not giving up.
is exactly. And I kind of said to myself, look, if my grandparents came over here in their 20s with nothing and they've achieved what they've achieved, then I've got something, you know, I'm already over here. I should be able to
carry that baton
more.
on, isn't it? Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
We've got some comments. Shall we look at some of them before we carry on? Because more inspiration is to come, guys. Every step of Yusuf's life so far has been very interesting. Honestly, we spoke for hours before we even got on the program today. And I said to Yusuf, like I said earlier in the program, I want your mother to come on because obviously she's a true inspiration. And I like this. My family's the same. Women, my grandmother worked, my mother worked, and I now work. And I think that's really important as well. Working women, a lot of us feel guilty, especially when we have children and we go out and work. But actually, we inspire our kids by working, and we don't necessarily have to be there 24/7, be there on the school run, be at every single show, but actually that they do in school. But actually persevering and working hard is also a very good inspiration for our children. So I want to make that point as well, because you are a product of that, and look how successful you are. So I think I wanted to just make that point. Hussein Hoja, great to see you both. Lots of love and well done. Zali here, watching with my son. Hussein Hoja, again, love you, Yusuf. I think he's got a watch party going, Yusuf, for you, by the way. He's saying Aslan and Bedi or something like that I saw on my phone. So he's a real supporter. Thank you, Hussein Hoja. Jan Sev, what a great story. I hope lots of young Turkish guys are watching and see what a great model you are. Definitely. Unfortunately, I'm a teacher and I can tell you Turkish Cypriot boys are probably one of the lowest group of kids with their levels of learning, and what they come out with at GCSE level is one of the lowest when you look at the league tables. So certainly we need more people like yourself, Yusuf, coming on the program and inspiring our youngsters, and, you know, telling them how important education is. And like, you were offered a top job. It was out of how many people that you were given this opportunity. But yet, when you spoke to that high executive, he said to you, go and, you know, educate yourself, because, you know, you can work all your life. So if you have got that opportunity, certainly go and educate yourselves. Suzanne, amazing. Yusuf, Aisha Adil, you guys are great. Very proud. She's another very good business lady, also in education. Aisha, salam to you from here. You're doing an amazing job as well. Sherif, a great role model. Bravo, young man. And she's also put, Aisha Adil has also put, yes, Aisha, unfortunately, Turkish boys and girls are low achievers. So she also, from an education background, is relating to that. For those boys who are disaffected, did you always know what you wanted to do? Because there's a lot of kids out there, when you say to them, what do you want to do? They say, I don't know. I really don't know. And they feel lost. Did you always know? Did that help? Or was it something you decided later on?
I didn't. And it can be quite a stressful time, you know, particularly in your late teens, not knowing what it is that you're going to end up doing.
Yeah.
I always knew that I wanted to be successful in my career, but I didn't quite know what that would be. So initially, and again, maybe it's my mother, but you know, I thought, you know, go into IT. You know, I know so and so, they're in IT, they're doing really well, and stuff like that, or go and become an accountant. And I think the reason I went and studied accountancy is because we constantly hear in our community, oh, you know, accountants, they make loads of money.
Accountant, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Exactly.
it's true.
So,
It's true.
and I was quite good at maths. And so I thought, you know, I'd pursue accountancy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't accountancy all along. And to be honest, I think if there is anyone that's young that's watching, I think one thing I want to say is it's okay not to know what you want to do. In fact, most people change their careers multiple times, you know, even later on in life. It's about doing something that you're passionate about, doing something that you believe in, doing something which is aligned to you, because it's not about following a career which is going to give you money. It's about following your passion, and then the money will follow. And more importantly, it's not about the money, right? And we'll come on to a bit of this later, hopefully, but it's about leaving a legacy. It's about leaving a footprint in the world where you can say, this is how I've impacted society. This is what I've left behind. And so, yeah, I was fortunate enough to go to university. And, you know, I worked during the weekends whilst I was at university to pay my own fees. Fortunately, I was getting a scholarship every year as well. And also, I think when you are at university, if that is what you want to do, because again, we still have this culture of like, oh, I want my kids to go to university, but not everyone is academically inclined.
True.
Sometimes it is better for someone not to go. You know, if someone's going to go to university to have a bit of fun and this, that, and the other, and blah, 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 if they're not serious about it, you need to really question as to whether that's the right path for them. University is not cheap. You know, when I was doing it, it was just over £3,000 a year. Now it's over £9,000 a year. It's a lot of money. So you've got to ask yourself, you know, is it required for what it is that you want to go out and achieve? And is it the right university? Is it the right subject? And, you know, we could spend a lot of time discussing that. The last thing I would say about university is it's not just about going to university and getting a degree and coming out. The degree is a piece of paper at the end of the day. Yes, it helps you. It's an aid. It lets you, it opens up your doors even more. But ultimately, it's you that gets yourself a job. And so use that opportunity whilst you're at university to get involved in some of the societies. Get involved in your local community there. I went to University of Surrey in Guildford, a beautiful city. But, you know, I headed up one of the societies. I headed up the Islamic Society there. We raised over £20,000 in a year. You know, we were in touch with the mayor who would come over. We'd put on certain talks. We were on the radio. We were in the news. So many things that we were involved in. And I felt like I learned more from that in some respects than I did from the actual degree itself. And when you apply for a job, they will say to you, okay, you've got this degree. You've got a first from Oxford or Cambridge. But what did you do? What, other than having a degree, what else did you do there? What makes you different from all the other candidates that have got a grade? And that's why you should really use university as an opportunity to interact with different cultures, broaden and open up your mindset, and make good friends, network, because some of those relationships will continue. I'm now 10 years on, whatever it is. Definitely. But I'm still in contact with people from university, and those people are all successful in their own career paths and stuff. But you've got to maintain those networks. You've got to maintain those relationships.
I think definitely it's important to reiterate that when you're actually when you first come out of education and you've got a university degree, of course the university degree is important, but what's also important is the experience that you've gained while at university. They look at that because you have to stand out. Unfortunately, it's hard to get a job. And that's, I think, why you were saying how, you know, your family were advised that you didn't necessarily have to go to university, because it is so difficult to get a job after university. It doesn't guarantee you a job. So if you gain experience while you're at university, certainly that is very good. And I like the fact that you were involved in so many things. You raised money, you were part of a community, and being part of a community helps a person's morale as well, you know, because it's not easy obtaining a degree. And you actually, I want to reiterate this because you sort of just skipped over it, but you actually had a scholarship as well as part of your degree. So that means that you actually achieved very high grades. And again, that's very commendable from the background that came. You went to a normal state school, you went to a college that, you know, had lots of problems and ended up, you know, going into special measures because the teaching and learning wasn't up to scratch. And within that environment, you still were able to obtain a scholarship. So that's a real credit on you. But again, it's not like, because we were talking about this, I said, is it that you're really intelligent? And you said to me, no, I wasn't. My mum read to me a lot. She invested a lot of time in me. So obviously she gave you that thirst for knowledge. And you had motivation. I mean, tell us, like, because, you know, a lot of youngsters may listen to this and think, oh, but Yusuf is just really clever. That's why he's been successful. What would you say to that?
I would say that it's not about being clever. It's not about being intelligent. Some of the people that I work with are where they are because they worked for it. It comes down to, if you really want something, if you're really hungry for something, if you have that will, you'll get there. But you've got to really want it first. And I find I have a lot, sort of voluntarily alongside my job, I do always give careers advice at universities and to sort of other people.
I'm going to stop you there. There's a comment.
Okay.
I'm stopping you there only because I want you to listen to this. Jan Severs put, if you're ever thinking about a career change, Yusuf, you would make an amazing careers coach to mentor for young people, for good luck for whatever you do in the future. You're really smart, Yusuf, but Aishan, you're right. Motivation is so important. So just as you were talking about that, I wanted to add that in, and I will do the comments beforehand as well, but I thought that was quite relevant to what you were saying. Yes, so carry on.
Yeah. No, I mean, I actually believe that I do career coaching now anyway, because in my job, and we'll come on to that in a moment, what I do.
Frozen.
Can you still hear me? I'm not sure if you can still hear me. Is it me that's frozen?
Hello? Are we
Hey,
back?
can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes,
Sorry about that.
Yes.
Was that me?
Right. Don't worry. We'll carry on.
Oh,
it's fine.
Cool. I was just saying that in the line of business that I work in, it's very often the case that we get people who've just graduated, got a job, and we have sort of analysts and consultants, senior consultants, etc., that come in, and you're still training them, you're still teaching them, you're still coaching them, you're mentoring them, and in addition to that, outside of the actual workplace, there's always the opportunity to give career advice and coaching to other people anyway. So I kind of see that as part and parcel of my job and what I do. But what I was going to say was that in answer to your question, what would you say to someone who says, "Oh, but you're just really clever"? I genuinely believe that if you really want something, doesn't even matter about your IQ. If you really want something, you can go out there and you can get it. It's not always the smartest person that gets to the top. It's sometimes the people that are willing to work hard for it. And one other thing that I've noticed through some of the conversations I have with some of the youngsters today, and it's not all of them, but it is a growing trend, is people just expect things to happen for them, like on a silver platter. Like, oh, I've got this degree now, like, give me a job. And it's like, whoa, it doesn't work that way. You have to prove why you should be given a job. And this sense of entitlement can be a real barrier. And so it comes down to, I think a lot of this comes down to who you are as a person as well, and your character. If you're brought up to be someone who's humble and sincere and passionate and determined and enthusiastic, you're going to go places. But if you're someone that sort of expects the world to be at your feet, the world doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. It never has done.
Yeah.
It never will do. If you want to go out there and get a career, I speak to so many people who talk about it. Oh, I want to be in this position. I want to do this. I want to do that. But what have you done about it? What are you doing about it? How are you making that happen? Because it's great to have a vision. I totally believe in having a vision and having an idea and this is what I want to do, etc. And we should all do that. We should all dream, and we should dream big. Sometimes I also see with the youth that they're very complacent. Oh, I've got a job here, I'll just take it. But no, think bigger than that. You're worth more than that. We all are. We've all got something, especially given our Turkish Cypriot background and what our parents or grandparents did come into this country. We've got something inside us that makes us different, that makes us stand out. And you need to tap into that and realize you're not like everyone else. You can go out there and you can make a difference. So you need to believe in yourself. You need to understand that. You need to understand yourself. You need to reflect on yourself. And you also need to do it. You need to actually say, right, I've got this vision. I know what I want to do. Now you need to put it into action and execute on that vision, execute on that plan, and get to where you want to be.
I mean, you're motivating and inspiring us tremendously, but what actually motivates and inspires you personally?
I think it's a lot of the things that we've already mentioned or tapped into. So, you know, my upbringing, my mother, my grandparents, my family, that's certainly inspirational. I think it's also who you hang around with, and we should be quite, what's the word? We should be careful. We should be,
Aware.
we should choose our friends wisely, because there's a saying, and they say, you know, if you hang around in the sewers, you're not going to smell that great, right? But if you hang around in a perfume shop, you're going to be smelling pretty good. And it's the same with friends, that you got to hang around with people who are also outgoing and ambitious and want to go places.
Definitely.
Sometimes you can have a great upbringing, but if you start mixing with the wrong people, they can influence you, and you need to be mindful of that. So put yourself in the right environment. You can control your environment to some extent. You know, you can choose what circles you want to hang around in. I'm not saying, you know, if there's people around you that aren't motivated or enthusiastic, completely lock them off out of your life. No. I'm certainly not saying that, but I'm saying, you know, realize that you need to start to hang around with people. You need to start mixing with people who are more inspirational, and you need to start reading about the lives and the biographies of people who have made it. You know, you need to be watching shows like this. You need to be watching The Apprentice or Dragon's Den, or, you know, you need to be filling your mind with that. And I think that not only will motivate you, but it will inspire you and prove to you that it's possible. So I think all of those things motivate me. I try to hang around with people. I try to be around people that I look up to and I have respect for as well. I think also, what else motivates me? I think also perhaps my cultural background and my faith as well. You know, we are taught as Cypriots growing up that we should always try to be the best that we can be.
Yes.
You know, we should never just say, oh, you know, it is what it is. We're doers. We go out there, we make it happen. And you know, I think that's something that's embedded into our culture. I mean, certainly my village, as well as other villages in Cyprus, you know, Cyprus came under, if we go back in history, so many people controlled Cyprus at different points. But as a people, we proved that we were flexible, that we were agile, that we could move with the times. And people came to this country or Australia or Germany or America or wherever, and they adapted and they grasped it and they could think on their feet. And what that proves is, it's in our blood, it's in our DNA, that no matter where we go, we can pick up the culture, we can pick up the lingo, and we can drive with it. And that's a very important attribute to have.
I think that's very inspiring, to tap into our background and not to forget our roots and where our parents and our grandparents come from. And certainly we were talking about this, and this is why I want to do this program, and I want to do a lot more of this, young Turkish Cypriots in our community, because we are now second, third generation in this country. And yes, we've integrated really, really well, but it's good to sort of remember our roots and bring that in. And like you said, take the positive from our culture, the fact that we are resilient, the fact that, you know, our parents came from quite, set lives, you know, during a civil war, you know, during war, came to this country and set up from scratch. And like you said, your grandparents had absolutely nothing, and then they ended up being very successful business people. This is all motivational, all inspiring. And, you know, when people, like you said, youngsters nowadays are a bit complacent, they need to reflect back, especially in our society, because why is it that we're one of the lowest achievers, especially amongst boys? Why is that? What's gone on? What's gone wrong within the second and third generations for these to happen? So I think definitely that's important. And I know we've touched upon it, but what specific advice would you give our youngsters, those disaffected youths that are a little bit unclear about their future, and fall under that bracket of, you know, young Turkish Cypriot boys, especially, unfortunately, more so than the girls, that are very disaffected and not achieving the grades? What would you say to them?
I'd say that they need to take a good hard look at themselves and say, who is it that you want to be? What is it that you want to stand for? You you know, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind? And you know, don't be too comfortable. I was working at, and we're probably going to come on to what it is that I actually do after university as well. But you know, I was working at an investment bank, UBS. It's a top 10 investment bank, headquarters in Switzerland. And the CFO, the global CFO, the chief financial officer, said to me, you know, never get too comfortable. This was about 4 or 5 years ago. Never get too comfortable. And I think that's some really powerful advice. That we shouldn't. We should always try to step outside of our comfort zone. We should always try something new. We should always stretch our minds and broaden our horizons. So I think that's the first piece of advice is, you know, if you're too comfortable, you know, see if you can go out and learn a different skill or take on another hobby or, you know, stretch yourself further.
Circle. I learned about it. I don't know very much about it. I'd have to research again, but there's like that circle of comfort. There's the middle zone where you're completely comfortable. And apparently you're never supposed to be in that, are you? You're meant to be on the outer rim where you're slightly on it, not stressing out or feeling pressured, but definitely out of your comfort zone a little bit. Apparently that's where the most successful people sit. I don't know what you're
I think so. I think so. I agree with that, because I think, look, we're not static humans. We evolve, we change, we transition. If I sit down here in 10 years' time at the age of 40 and I say, look, I think exactly the same, then something's gone wrong. I'm either incredibly lucky or I'm arrogant. And we have to.
You're arrogant. I love it.
Well, that's simply the case, isn't it? I mean, we have to.
You're not the arrogant one. You're just very lucky. We've established this already.
I hope
that summer for the next 10 years. You're just very lucky, Yusuf.
I hope that in 10 years time that a lot of my views do change, because that's a positive sign, right?
Yes.
If you're not changing your views, if you're not changing your mindset, if you're still the same, thinking the same, everything, then you're not stretching your mind. You're not thinking outside of the box. We have to think outside of the box, and we're a thinking people. This is something that we need to revive. So yeah, I think those that step outside what they're used to, their comfort zone, and try to learn new things and adapt with the times and try to look into the future, those are the ones that are probably going to succeed. A second piece of advice I'd get is it's not about just getting to the top. It's not about getting money. It's making sure that when you're at the top, it's still you, that you're still the person that's there. So many times in my career, I've seen people get so obsessed with trying to get to the next level, trying to get that promotion, that they lose their principles. They sacrifice, they compromise on their principles. Where almost the job is their ultimate objective in life, which should never be the case. It's a means to an end, right? We obviously believe in morals and principles and ethics, and these are higher, these take more precedence over our career. And yeah, I mean, you know, who knows, maybe if I swindled people, whatever, I'd be 2 years ahead in my career, but that's not what I want. I want to be in a position where I retire and I know deep down in my heart that I've done everything the correct way, and that nobody could ever turn around and say, oh, but this guy, you know, he did this to this person or this to that person. But also, I think that people who are good people, you know, we say insan look, right? People that express that and show that and demonstrate that and live by that, those are the people that get far. Because when you go to work in the professional world, people don't want to work with someone who's rude or arrogant, or who's conniving or manipulative. They want to work with people that they can trust. They want to work with people who have integrity, who have courage, and people who are kind. And so I think it also comes down to your character. I think good people get far. You know, no one wants to work with people that you know, try to con them or backstab them and all the rest of it. And I see people go down that route. And it only takes a few years, and it will always come back to bite. And I think the second piece of advice I'm trying to say here is stay true to yourself, stay authentic as you do go throughout your career. Be you, and make sure it's still you at the top when you get there, and you've not transformed into some nasty person
Yes.
just to get there.
Because that's the preconception, though, isn't it? They say, oh, you know, you got to the top because you did this and you did that and you were conniving. And there seems to be this idea out there that you have to be a little bit dishonest to get far in life. But that's actually not the case at all, because one way or another, like you said, you know, it will come back to bite them, because your reputation is important. And especially in the world of business, I mean, we'll talk about this now, actually, business ethics. Everybody knows everybody, and your reputation actually goes before you do, you know, and people will recommend you or let you into certain groups or give you business by your reputation. I mean, what advice would you give about business ethics?
I think it's such an important topic, and I think that, you know, the way in which we conduct business with other people, we have to do it in an ethical way. Business is based on trust, and business should be respectful, and this is something that we should all hold to very firmly. I think if you're going out there just to sort of put one over on somebody, first of all, the money that you're getting, or para helal değil. And you need to make sure that the money that you're getting is clean, it's right, that you've earned it, that you deserve it. And second of all, people aren't stupid. People know when someone's good or not. And those that do wrong by people, and we've seen it in our community, unfortunately, people who do wrong quite a bit, yes, we all know about it.
Yes,
right?
we do.
say, you know, exactly. We know that so-and-so.
Because we're good at gossiping as well in our culture. Everybody knows everything about everyone, even here.
But do you want to be known for that? Do you want to be known for someone who's gone around conning people? You don't. You want to be known for being somebody that's morally upright. That's more important. In fact, I don't have children, but when I do have children, the most important thing for me is that they are good, upright people. I'd rather they stick to their morals and have a degree. Honestly, like, people get so obsessed with the degree and the career and the job and all the rest of it. I'd rather, as long as they're good people, that's more important to me. If they could be good people and have a career, I'll be even happier. I'll be even more happy, right? And I believe that they'll have a better chance of having a good career because they're good people. I mean, when I graduated from university, I went back to EY. That's where I started my career on the grad scheme there. Why? Because of that individual. Because that individual who gave me that voluntary work experience, he said to me at the time, you can do it. And when you do it, it won't be paid, but we will pay for your travel. That's what he said to me. And at the end of the 2 weeks work experience, the HR representative turned around and said to me, look, they said to me, we don't pay for travel. So whoever said this to you, they're incorrect, they're wrong. So I told this to him, and do you know what he did? He said, don't tell anyone this. I shouldn't be telling everyone. But I have not mentioned, I've not mentioned his name.
Okay, don't tell everyone.
I've not mentioned his name. Yeah, but I've not said his name. But I think let's just see what this individual did, right? He went out and pulled that money out of his own account and he gave it to me. And he said, look, I said to you that we would pay for your travel. And if the firm are now saying that that's not the case, I will uphold my word to you. And he gave me the money for the travel, which for me was a big thing because I was only like 19 or 20 at the time, and it was I lived quite far, and he paid it out of his own pocket.
Yes.
Right. And because of that, and because of him as an individual, I finished university. And where did I go? Did I go to Blackrock? No, where I got the job before. And I actually, after my first year at university, I saw that the summer holidays were coming up. And I said, well, look, what am I going to do in the summer holidays? Why don't I contact Blackrock, who were going to give me a role anyway, and see if they can give me a job for 3 months doing what I would have done. And you know what? I tried my luck and it worked. And I got there. And after about, you know, they were quite pleased to hear from me. And after a month, they even gave me a little promotion, which was good because they were quite taken aback by the work that I was doing. And then they said, look, we don't want you to go back to university. We want you to stay. And I said, look, I need to go back and get the degree. I've started this and it's important to me. And they said, well, look, you know, the relationship's there. Even after university, you can come back here. But I didn't. I went to EY. And the reason I went to EY was because of that individual. People don't leave companies. They leave bad managers. People don't join companies. They join where they believe that there are good managers. And that's why I joined EY. And I was there for about 3 or 4 years. I did my studies. I became a chartered accountant, which is what I wanted to do at that time. I'll be honest with you, bit boring. I wasn't as passionate.
Your career, actually, because we haven't gone into that. We've talked about your education, but tell us a little bit about your career now, just to give our viewers an idea. And we've got comments, by the way. Also, Eurogames TV is saying, if our audiences have any questions, please feel free to comment below and I will read them out. Lots of positive comments, Yusuf. We are going to go through them, but I'd like you to just tell us a little bit about your career path now. What happened after you got your education?
So I started my career in tax for the investment banking world. God knows why. I quite liked the idea that it was politically driven. And I remember saying to mum, you know, audit or tax, and as a typical Turkish Cypriot, tax. And I loved it. You know what? It was probably one of the best things. It's probably one of the best places to start because it's knowledge that you need to keep with you no matter where you go in your career to have that insight about tax. I did it for about a year. I got a 5-star rating. I was the only one that got a 5-star rating in my year group. And so they said to me, look, as a result, you can do some secondments into other parts of the business. So I did a bit of audit. Hated that even more. How boring was that? But again, really good. Learned my way around financial statements, balance sheets, profit and loss, etc., and doing it for another top big investment bank, as well as a smaller debt factoring company. And then had the opportunity to work in M&A for a bit. And then I moved into advisory. Consultancy, also known as consultancy. And this is essentially where a lot of people say, what is consulting? It's where you go and help a business be better. So how can you help them increase their market share? How can you help them increase their revenue? How can they reduce their costs? How can they comply with regulation that's coming out? You know, how can they have a better workforce? What can they do to incentivize their people? How can they make sure that they're attracting the right people and keeping and retaining those people? It could be on anything. It could be their technology. It could be their processes. It could be a whole range of things. But I quite liked providing consultancy services to the investment banking world. Why? Because in 2008, when I was at university, we witnessed the global financial crisis. And I remember watching on TV that people were committing suicide. People were losing their houses. People were, you know, families were broken up. And it affected everybody. And I wanted to be part of that change. I wanted to be part of shaping the investment banking world so that it is more ethical. And that's kind of what I got into. And so a lot of the projects that I was involved in was around new regulation that was coming out to prevent another crisis from happening and to provide better stability to the banking world. So I worked at EY for about 4 years. And at that point, I decided to move to Accenture. Now, Accenture is another top consultancy firm.
Yes.
You have the big four, which is EY, Deloitte, PwC, KPMG. It used to be the big five. There was also another firm called Arthur Andersen. Okay. And that went down with the Enron scandal around the year 2000. But the consulting arm continued to live on, and it was called Andersen Consulting. And then around 2001, they rebranded as Accenture, and they're actually a publicly listed company. Again, a massive giant in the consulting world. I think they have over 300,000 people globally. And so I joined their investment banking advisory practice, specifically looking at finance and risk. So how can we improve the finance and risk functions within these investment banks? At that point, I also got involved in quite a few other projects. So robotics, artificial intelligence,
about that.
Big data.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So, you know, not just the investment banking world, but a lot of organizations are looking at how can they better leverage technology to help them keep a competitive edge and beat the market. And so you're seeing all these fantastic things around artificial intelligence. I'll give you an example. I mean, Goldman Sachs had a trading floor of around sort of 500 people, 600 people, probably around 15, 20 years ago. Now there's just two. They've all been replaced by algo trading because a computer can execute trades a lot more quickly, and it can even think better and come up with better decisions in some cases. And it's almost like the banks that invest more in their technology are those that are going to be more successful. You then started to see a whole load of fintechs coming out, startups that are sort of challenging the bigger players and joining in the competitive landscape. And after about a year and a half, 2 years at Accenture, at that point, I decided to leave and join a boutique consultancy firm, which was voted as the best place to work in the UK across all industries. And I joined because they take work-life balance very seriously. They treat their people with a lot of respect. You know, every year they take us on holiday. You know, they still work with the big players. And most of the sort of partners that work there used to work in the Big Four, had enough of the office politics and decided to come over. And so I've been at this place now for about 3 years. Recently got promoted again, which I'm really grateful for. And yeah, I've absolutely loved the projects that I've been working on, very fortunate. And it's great because you walk away and you're like, you know what? I left my footprint now. I mean, one of the things I did at UBS is help redesign their daily P&L process. Every single trader on the trading floor has to do their daily P&L. And we completely redesigned that. And I look back on like that process, like I'm a part to play in that. You know, leaving a footprint, leaving something behind where actually you've influenced that. And there's a lot of other projects we're working on now with respect to climate change. I think the one industry that's going to affect climate change the most is financial services. And that's why you're going to start to see green bonds and, you know, they're going to be capping finances towards companies which are harmful to the environment, etc. The financial services sector will massively influence that and affect the lives of our children and our children's children and so on and so forth.
To that, hasn't it? Companies do have to think about that. We're in the last 5 minutes, not even 4 minutes of our program, and I'm going to ask you our last question. But before that, I'm going to just go through some of the comments. Most of them aren't questions, just more positive comments. But I still think we need to go through it because it's just showing how inspirational you've been today and motivated a lot of people. A very resilient and inspirational young man, Suzanne has said. Jansev talked about you becoming a careers coach, and we talked about the fact that you already are sort of doing that. Sherifa, massive respect. And then Fatima Mehmet, another inspirational story. Well done, Aisha and Yusuf. Certainly inspiration. Thank you, Fatima. And Hüsam Medin has said, Yusuf kardeşim çok güzel görünüyorsun, I think that is. And Jan said, konuşuyorsun. Sorry, I can't see because the sun's reflecting on my computer. Jan said, spot on about managers and companies. Which agency? I don't know what Jan said means by that. Maybe you would understand, Yusuf. Which agency they've just written here?
I don't actually know what that means. Do you mean which firm do I currently work for? I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah, I think we might need clarification, and maybe after the program we can personally DM her and actually give her an answer. But basically, my last question, and this is part of an article that was written about you, by the way, is about thinking about personal reflections and the next sort of 10 to 20 years, because it doesn't end here. You're, like you said, you're growing, and you said earlier on in the program that within the next 10 years, you hope that you've changed and evolved. But how do you see yourself in the next 10 to 20 years? What are your personal reflections that you'd like to share with our audiences?
Such a big question.
I know, it's huge. And you've got 3 minutes. Go.
3 minutes. Gosh.
Go.
So in
no pressure.
I'd like to continue to work in the space that I'm working in. I do thoroughly enjoy it. I'd like to continue to shape, mold the financial services industry. I think it's a fantastic time to be involved in it. Some even think that we're on a brink of a recession like we haven't seen for almost 100 years, especially with everything that's been going on with the C word, COVID. I think what I see myself doing is continuing to play an influential role in the industry that I focus on. I'd like to see myself get to partner level as well, and have a stake in the organization. I really enjoy the company I currently work for, and so I don't really see myself moving from there. Another thing that I love about my job is continuously being able to sort of manage, mentor, coach people that are more junior to me. And that's something where I go home and, you know, one of the things I always wanted to be, we never touched on this, is actually a teacher. And I actually used to volunteer in a primary school for about a year. I used to help year 1 and year 6. But I still see myself as a teacher in my workplace. And I'd like to think of myself in 10 years' time as being able to teach more and help others with their careers as well. But most importantly, I hope that in 10 years' time that, you know, I'd like to see more people from our community stepping into professional services and leaving their footprint as well.
100%. It's been great having you on my show. You're sort of a real inspiration, like I said, and it's been great chatting to you. I'm sure we will do many more programs together. But that's it from us, from the Printed Press today. Thank you very much again. Thank you very much to our audiences. Thank you very much for all the comments. We'll see you again on Monday. Have a lovely weekend. That's it. Have a good evening. Goodbye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, we are Bologna, calling newlyweds or those looking for a new bedroom set. Venti 5-door bedroom set is not only glamorous and modern, but has storage inside the bed. This bedroom set was £3,700, now £2,395. Bologna, we are here for you.